Welcome into Northside Territory, Foul Territory Network's Cubs podcast. I'm Sahadev Sharma with my partner Patrick Mooney. We are your Cubs beat writers over at The Athletic. Patrick is not quite the middle of the season, but we are going to hand out some grades for this team as they continue to muddle through. I guess how many games are we in? Do I have the record rate? 40? Is it 40? No, wait. Like I'm off on my. It is. It's 40 and 37. So we're 77 games in. So we're close. We're close to that midpoint. I think everyone can agree that after the way the season started, 3 games over 500 is not where people were hoping for at this point. It's interesting reading fans' reactions right now. They're acting like this team is 10, 15 games under 500, but I get it. When you struggle like they have the past month plus, it's hard to feel positive. But I think we have to look at this season as a whole so far, which is, we're nearing the end of June, and they're in a playoff spot, which is really weird to say because the vibes around it did not feel that way. But let's start with, I guess we could do this first segment, the coaching staff and the front office. I think it's hard for me to I think Counsell, think about it. If we would have done this at the end of April or the beginning of May, it's an A+, right? Like, what a great job Greg Counsell has done. I don't think he's done anything like super wrong since then. But it's hard to give him like an A when the season is just kind of average. So I think, it's just average. It's a C for me, for him and the coaching staff. I just don't think nothing stands out where it's like, why is he doing this? Why is he calling upon this guy in the bullpen? Like, when you have this many injuries, when you have this many guys being ineffective, like, there's a certain way you have to, you're going to be wrong sometimes. I just don't, nothing is glaring to me, but I think fans will disagree with that they'll nitpick on something. But I think it's just been an average season for this coaching staff.
Yeah, I'm going to tie them together, the sort of like Craig Counsell's group and Jed Hoyer's group, just because there is a lot of collaboration there, and that, whether it's Tommy Sahadev sort of being an extension of the front office, or Craig Counsell getting involved in R&D in the offseason, Tyler Zombro in this role where he's in uniform and out of uniform, during the offseason meetings. Yeah, I'm with you. Like, certainly not an A, definitely not an F. If you want to go B-, C+, I could C-, you could probably talk me into it. Just like that's been kind of the work product thus far. And maybe once they get past the halfway point in leaving New York, maybe they have a nice. We're recording before Tuesday's game after 2 consecutive rainouts. That also colors this a bit as well. There has been a new result to move onto. But the Cubs, their next stop will be Milwaukee. And I think Milwaukee makes all of this look worse. You know what I mean? We are grading on a curve here. When you look at the state of the National League, there's a lot of really average teams. And there's so much parity that I think we both expect them to be in the race until mid to late September. And then it's just kind of like, can they come through in the, that last week or so? Can they avoid the collapse we saw in 2023? Will they have a nice finishing kick after the trade deadline? We have no idea. And yeah, maybe this is incomplete for the front office in that sense. They still have a lot of work to do. I think overall the coaching staff and Counsell get credit for Pico Armstrong's development, for how the pitching, they've weathered it fairly well considering just the sheer volume of injuries. But then again, we'll never know this, but could they have done more on the front end to prevent this? Is some of it, the personnel they acquired. Like you should maybe expect injuries with some of these guys, but I think as we talk through some of these additions in the upcoming segments here, I think back to the story you wrote somewhat recently of just like this was a 92-win team, pretty methodically built, pretty fairly well-rounded roster. You're trading, swapping out Kyle Tucker for Alex Bregman, and like all of these moves were reasonable. There was not a whole lot of like, what are they thinking here? And so that I think that compounds it too, of just like you see how well the Brewers are doing. That doesn't make the Cubs look great, and also it's just kind of confusing. I think that's why it's hard for me to just like put a big red F on it, because we understood where they were coming from with a lot of this stuff, and as we deal with Craig Counsell's coaches, like they're like reasonable people. They're good communicators. We can kind of see where they're coming from on a lot of this, and they will point to, look, everything's incomplete because we still have a half season to go.
Yes. If I'm grading them just on these first 2.5, 3 months, then the front office, that is, then I think I would not give them I would not give them a C. Like I'd have to give them below. And like, look, that's totally second guessing, because I think we were on board with this offseason. We thought it was a smart offseason. I thought they did a lot of good. Nothing's really worked out as hoped so far. Yeah. Alex Bregman is not performing up to expectations. Edward Cabrera is not a standout starter for this team. Phil Maton has really struggled. Hunter Harvey has barely pitched. Jacob Webb has been good, but has struggled of late. And the bullpen is a concern for me. The rotation is a concern. The moves just haven't really worked out. The bullpen, like, this is just how bullpens are, and I know I'm probably gonna answer some questions via mailbag, and people are like, how could they have built this type of bullpen? And I mean, so they need to bring in some certainty. Yeah, okay, they should have signed Edwin Diaz, who has pitched 4 innings and had like a 10 ERA. Maybe they should have signed Devin Williams, who has an ERA pushing 5. Maybe they should have signed Pete Fairbanks, who has an ERA pushing like 10. Re-signed Brad Keller, whose ERA is double last season. Like, I don't know. There's no such thing as certainty in the bullpen. I know fans get so annoyed by hearing that, and they think it's an excuse. But it is so hard to build a bullpen year after year. You need guys to step up that you didn't like. Nobody has stepped up that they kind of needed to. Like Colin Snyder, Corbin Martin, Riley Martin got hurt. So it's this is excuse making, I guess you could say, but it's also the reality of building a bullpen. You just don't know what you're going to get. You could feel so confident about what you've put together, and it can just turn out to be a mess, or you can have kind of be like, I don't know how it's going to look, and then it dominates. Last year was really good. I thought last year was a good bullpen. They have figured it out on the fly, so I would not be surprised if the bullpen does get figured out. They're really throwing things against the wall with this bullpen right now. We talked about it a couple episodes ago, I believe. Like, they're just cycling through 40-man roster spots. So that I think is something that can be fixed over the course of a season. We see it all the time with different teams. Go back to that World Series run that the Diamondbacks went on, I believe what was that, 23, 24?
Yeah.
23. Yeah. And they had a rough bullpen the first few months. They made a couple trades, picked up some guys that had struggled in the first half, and were nails for them in the second half. And that's kind of how it is. It can be the most random thing in sports. So sometimes there's just no rhyme or reason to it all. Let's take a quick break and break down some position players and give them grades.
When my puppy Bella has something wrong, I'm not going to go around Googling what to do.
Yeah, Kratz, let's have a better plan. Today's episode is sponsored by the ASPCA Pet Health Insurance Program. It offers customizable accident and illness plans that can fit your budget, your lifestyle, and even your pet's particular quirks. Because let's be honest, vet bills can add up fast. ASPCA Pet Health Insurance has been around for almost 30 years and has covered over 1 million pets. And when it's time to submit a claim, it's easy. Just use their app and receive reimbursement for eligible vet bills directly into your bank account so you can get back to focusing on what really matters, your pet. To explore coverage, visit aspcapetinsurance.com/foul. That's aspcapetinsurance.com/foul. Again, that's aspcapetinsurance.com/foul. This is a paid advertisement. Insurance is underwritten by either Independent American Insurance Company or United States Fire Insurance Company and produced by PTZ Insurance Agency Limited. The ASPCA is not an insurer and is not engaged in the business of insurance.
All right. So I think if we were grading the offense again 6 weeks ago, we'd be talking about like A+.
Best offense ever.
Yeah. and obviously 6 weeks has changed a lot. This is one of the more confusing. It's just, I don't know. Again, it's like the volatility of bullpens, the randomness of hitting with runners in scoring position is like these have to be the two most frustrating things to like watch when things aren't going right, and kind of accept that man, baseball can be a random sport sometimes. And yes, is this like the hitting with runners in scoring position? Like you look at the Cubs numbers when like overall versus that, and it's really weird, and it's a stark difference, and it makes you question of like what are they doing wrong, when I think a lot of baseball people feel like, no, this stuff will even out. And again, this is one of those things that fans don't want to hear. So I get the frustration, and I think it is important to analyze it beyond that and wonder what else is going on. But I just don't think there's a simple answer to that. But that's probably the biggest issue with this team. If they had, 10 more hits with runners in scoring position, that's probably like 5 more wins. That's really like what a big swing it would be, because I was just looking this up, Patrick. They have the most plate appearances with runners in scoring position, and they have, I believe, the 28th in batting average. And again, like I think people who know me know that I don't think batting average is the most important stat, but it's important with runners in scoring position. You want to get base hits, because sometimes a walk with a man on second and one out just doesn't do the job. But a ground ball seeing eye single can change a game. So that right there is one reason why it's hard.
You're losing your mind. You're talking up batting average here. Like, this is what the Cubs have done to your brain. Cubs baseball. This is your brain on Cubs baseball.
Right. So the overall, it's the offense gets another mediocre C here from me. But I think I still feel that by the end of the season, we'll be looking back and saying that's a B season, maybe an A season for the offense.
Yeah, I think it's just like disappointing that this group as a whole hasn't stepped forward, and like how quickly it went from like, World Series contender to like, are these guys too uptight? Do they have the wrong mix of personalities in the room? Yeah. And like, or is there something wrong with like kind of this hitting group as a whole? Because this is what Jed Hoyer's front office has really staked this team on. This is what they built around. They have been proven right. Bullpens are volatile. You don't want to put big money behind those players, which is fine. You just have to be right in the other areas. And the Cubs historically don't pay for number one starters. They have in the past, I should say. I mean, Yu Darvish, John Lester, but like recently, they saw where the Dylan Cease market was going, and they were informed and were like, all right, good luck with that. And he got paid in Toronto, and so sort of getting a lot of sort of number 3 type starters on good days, or and also not developing pitching from within that much means you're your hitters, your everyday guys have to carry you. And, kind of looking at, the baseball reference sheet right now, I mean, Pico Armstrong, I think he gets an A. I think he doesn't get an A plus just because of what happened on the South Side and some of his glaring defensive mistakes. I know he's still an awesome defender, has put up some amazing offensive numbers recently. So I think that's a solid A, not quite an A plus. I think Ian Happ, as frustrating as he can be for fans, is putting together an all-star caliber first half. We'll see if he actually gets in the game, and he's streaky as well, so we don't know where he'll wind up between now and the all-star break. But at the end of the year, you're gonna have a pretty solid season out of him. So I put him in that kind of A minus B plus range. And then Seiya's a name I sort of circled of like, his numbers are good. He's a much better defender, but just when the Cubs go through these tailspins, like Seiya usually seems to be kind of at the forefront of that. And just, you would like to see a little more consistency or quicker ability to kind of pull the team out of the nosedive. And that's one of those, just because we hear how players talk about him. We know how talented he is. We know how hard he works, how much he cares. And like, that's just kind of been who he is during his time in Chicago. And now that may change. He might have been their most dangerous hitter during last year's playoffs. And like, I certainly wouldn't rule that out, like a monster stretch in the second half, that sort of carries the team. But, he has been kind of that guy, like when everything's clicking, around him, say is clicking. There's been fewer times where, you look to him to sort of like have that huge hit that changes everything. You just would like a little more there. And that's why I put him in that similar sort of like B plus range.
Yeah. I think you look at the middle infield and obviously third base, Bregman, Swanson, Nico. I mean, Nico was an A plus, at the end
for
of
a couple
April.
weeks there.
Yeah. I mean, we thought he was a different player. So, he goes through these stretches, though. I think sometimes people, when he's in it, they're like, what's wrong with Nico? He relies on the ball finding holes sometimes. He's not hitting the ball as hard. I think that I'd say the bad luck has mostly been like the last week-ish. He's looked a little bit better in the plate, and he can't buy a hit now. So it went from, there were a few weeks there where I was like, this is soft contact on the ground, and that's why like you need a ton of luck for that. But now he's starting to hit more line drives, and I feel like that last homestand, there were a lot of balls that he hit well that were just like good defensive plays or right at guys. That's the type of stuff that you hope. Nico's pretty good about compartmentalizing and understanding. Like that's how he relies on the ball and play finding grass. Even Bregman looks a little bit better, and I feel like the luck hasn't swung his way fully yet. But he needs to put the ball out of the park. He needs to hit the ball out of the park. And Dansby has been a mess. And I do feel like there have been glimpses, but it's such a short window. It's like 3 games now that we've seen some hard hit balls. You need a much longer stretch to feel like he's coming out of it, because this has been, I know he, and Craig Counsell talks about this, he goes through these big swings where it's like, oh, he looks lost. Is he on the downswing of his career? And then he gets on this huge stretch. But he was, 5 days ago or whatever, he was hitting 175. He was tied for the lowest batting average in baseball. Patrick, you know who he was tied with? He was tied with Manny Machado. Wow. Manny Machado is having a really weird season where he's hitting for a really low average, but I think he leads the Padres in home runs. Very, very odd. I don't want to get into Padres discussion. So Dansby needs to get on a hot streak. Like all these guys need to. I think when you look at how well Pete's doing, You just want a couple more guys to get hot. Like if you have Pete swinging like he's swinging, if you have two other guys, and especially if they're kind of bunched together in the lineup, that just makes all the, just makes all the hitting with scoring position, all those things feel a little bit less worrisome. You just have a few guys clicking, get to the 5-6 run mark. They did that for the last 3 games, but the bullpen blew one of those games for them. But just the slightest bit of hope I see from this offense right now. It was 3 games. Need to do much better. Need to put together, stack some series here. But I'm seeing a little glimmer of hope from the offense. I am. I just don't like. I know. I think when it lasts this long, the struggles, it needs to be stacked before you buy back in, and that's how I'm feeling. That I've trusted this offense. I believe that this offense is good, but now I need I get it. When you have these slumps, it really makes you question everything about a group.
I mean, according to Baseball Reference, Nico's a 1 WAR player, Dansby 1.5, Bregman at 2. So clearly, these guys haven't totally cratered. That's why the Cubs invested in them, because they have a pretty high floor and they're sort of, I think, scraping it now. I think, all of these guys, get marked down just because of how much the Cubs, have believed in them and bet on them, and how much we've heard about their leadership abilities. When you see the Cubs in a skid that goes on to this extent, you sort of question some of that. I mean, Bregman, flat out said, "I've been terrible," or whatever the quote was. He's been basically league average as a hitter. I think you're right to point out some of these other star third basemen, how a lot of guys have struggled to get it going, but this is why the Cubs signed him as this finishing piece. I think it's weird because Bregman doesn't seem totally lost up there. He is getting on base, he's taking walks, he's getting singles, but obviously the big hits, the slug, just haven't been there. Dansby weirdly started off with that power surge that made you think, oh, maybe something's clicked. And this is kind of Nico's game, like you're saying. I'm not super concerned, but it's also, this is what the Cubs have said looking back on prior seasons. Do you get that 6-win season from Nico, or do you get a 3-win season from Nico? And Dansby's kind of in that too, of Dansby can be a 6 WAR player, but it's going to be a 3 based almost solely on defense. That whole group, I don't know, C+ to D+. I don't know. However, if they have a good game tonight, maybe it's a C+. It's just certainly not an avid. D+ seems a little harsh. Given that they're not negative contributors, but just the whole group is just wanting more, other than the infielder we haven't talked about, and this is probably the way Michael Busch likes it.
Right.
Slow start, but very solid year. He's not getting paid like those others guys are either. So just tremendous value, probably a B+ and quietly becoming, one of the best first basemen in the majors.
Yeah.
All around. Yeah.
Right. And it gets back to what I was saying before about runners in scoring position, but I think a lot of those guys we've talked about are just having weird seasons. Nico, who people think of as this clutch guy, no, really rough season with runners in scoring position. Seiya's having a rough one. Bregman, I think, is the big, Happ is struggling, I think, in those situations, but Bregman's the big one, because I feel it's almost that's one of those ones where it's just find a hole once. He has not come through in those situations much at all, and it feels they're a lot they're stacking up as far as plate appearances or runners that have been stranded, both him and Happ. You want to see them come through and just get a couple hits in those moments, because the Cubs do provide a lot of those moments. So just a few more big hits, and it's the type of thing that can help swing a game and swing a season, really. Let's take a break and talk about the pitching when we come back.
This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Baseball fans, the MLB season is in full swing, and FanDuel is giving you a chance to call your shot with daily dingers. Joining the action is easy. Just make your free pick on who's hitting a home run in their game, and if you're right, you'll get a profit boost to use on your next bet for a chance at extra winnings. It's just another reason why FanDuel is the home of home runs. So, are you ready to play your game? Head over to FanDuel.com/podcast to get started. That's FanDuel.com/podcast to opt in for daily dingers. Make your free pick on who's hitting a homer. Play ball. Swing for the fences on FanDuel, an official partner of Major League Baseball. No purchase necessary. Opt-in required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable profit boost tokens. Restrictions apply, including any token expiration and max wager amount. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call or text 1-800-GAMBLER.
So with the pitching, Patrick, I don't know how I can give this group a passing grade. They've given up the most home runs in baseball. If you want to give them a pass in the sense that the injuries are the reason that it's as bad as it is, I understand that, but they have been waylaid by injuries, and to suggest that they didn't prepare for it, I think would be unfair, because they had a lot of depth entering the season, and they have and it has hit them hard. The number of injuries to both the rotation and the bullpen, but that's part of the game, and other teams suffer a lot of injuries too. Everyone reacts differently right now. I guess I would say the Cubs haven't, like, you could almost, I think you said this in the first segment, you could almost make the argument that they should be worse because of all the injuries. Like, it's a little bit of a surprise that they're doing as well as they are, that they haven't completely sunk, like kind of like the Mets. But I can't say like, oh, give them a pass on this, because they're just not doing well enough. And I think the bullpen in particular is where, going against what I said, listen, it's going to go all over the place, but it is what it is. The results are how I'm going to grade it on, and it hasn't been good enough. Well, I say the bullpen in particular, I think that's what I'm concerned about right now, but the numbers say the rotation is significantly worse. So rotation ERA is bottom 5 in baseball. Home runs allowed are largely, like, I think that it's the rotation that's given up the most. Bullpen is starting to add to that total, though. There have been some really big home runs lately from the bullpen, both in terms of costing them a game on Saturday, and then there was one recently where they shouldn't have had to go to their high leverage guys, and guys couldn't get the job done, middle inning guys, and it made it too close, and they had suddenly a game on their hands, and they had to bring in guys that that Counsell probably wanted to avoid, and that adds up. That's a problem when you have guys that can't, that are walking guys or giving up long balls in a blowout game, and suddenly now you have to use your high leverage guys, and those guys are becoming limited. Palencia's on the IL. Hunter Harvey's barely pitched. We've named all the names. There's a lot of guys that just aren't effective or are on the shelf on both sides, both bullpen and rotation. It's a tough group right now. Some quick updates. Matthew Boyd will be pitching with the team, the big league club, his next start. Edward Cabrera starts tonight. We're recording on, what day is today? Tuesday. And then Jameson Taillon, I guess Counsell said maybe before the All-Star break. This was just like, he just kind of threw that in there yesterday when we talked to him before the game got called. So that's like I guess that would be the optimistic hope with Taillon. Why does all that stuff matter? Like, if you're not in love with the season Jameson Taillon's having, which I understand, he's given up way too many home runs, all that stuff, like, it'll beef up the bullpen at minimum. Like, that's it. Like, you need some depth in the bullpen. You need innings. Like, right now, that you need to make sure you get through the season, because eventually we'll start talking about trade deadline and stuff like that in upcoming episodes. But that's where this focus is going to be over the next, what do we got, 6 weeks before the deadline? That's where the focus is. Pitching. I understand fans are frustrated and don't think this team is good enough. They're in the playoffs right now. you have to add, and you never know when you get hot. So if this offense turns around, you can build a stronger bullpen, and suddenly you feel really good about the way things look in the second half.
I mean, just to underline, how impossible the situation has felt at times. Like, you're probably given, incomplete grades to Matthew Boyd. He's thrown 24 innings this year. Cade Horton's thrown 7 1/3 innings this year. Justin Seal, 0 innings thus far. Daniel Palencia, 3 save opportunities.
Amazing.
Just kind of unbelievable. You had mentioned Hunter Harvey, 4 appearances. Like, these are, kind of bets the Cubs made, on how this team was going to flourish this year. And there just been way too many incompletes. Edward Cabrera, a negative WAR contributor thus far. I mean, just a really big disappointment. I know some of this is out of his control. He's had, some minor injuries here and there, and we've seen flashes of the stuff, but has not put it together the way the Cubs hoped for. I would say you got to give an A probably to Ben Brown, although that his emergence has, weakened the bullpen. All of the stuff we're talking about here is interconnected. Yeah. Like, why is the bullpen bad? It's like, well, a bunch of relievers had to go into the rotation. Ryan Ralston would be an exception to kind of the bullpen thing we were talking about. I almost
forgot about him
at the top of the show there, about just how the bullpen's kind of a mess. He's been a very pleasant surprise, and I think Shota and Colin Ray have been in that like B- range. I know like Ray's numbers aren't always like outstanding, but he's always put in a difficult spot, and he just bounces back and does his job quietly without complaint, without any sort of fanfare. I think you like having that on your team. And Shota, we've seen some stretches where he looks like an ace, but he's had some really ugly outings. I think that's just kind of the Shota experience, and I'm probably more optimistic than most, but I think over his next 15 starts, I think you're going to see some quality. And to be honest, it's not like the Cubs have many other options, and I think that's kind of tying it back to how this episode started, like just the lack of kind of homegrown pitching and just kind of young pitching to be able to plug in as needed. Just hasn't quite been there. Again, they don't throw parades for, Baseball America rankings or anything like that, but you see when the team is stretched to this extent, and the amount of just sort of like DFA churning, random cast-offs they're, putting in, like, don't look at AAA Iowa's kind of pitching logs, or at least that's what we were told not that long ago. Like, all that stuff adds up, but they still have another half of the year to, prove us wrong. And, and they still, I think this is something too, you mentioned this before we started recording, avoiding a Mets-like scenario at the beginning of the year is very valuable, to just kind of weather the storm, to just kind of keep pushing forward. There's a lot of value in that, and maybe the Cubs will kind of capture that over the coming months.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see what they do with the rotation when Boyd comes back in. For nothing else other than, who do they think is the right? Like, I think one of those guys between Ray and Assad needs to go to the bullpen, not be sent down, because the bullpen needs someone that can like do multiple innings. And Ray's, what a weird season. I just looked at his numbers. I saw something that said he was like bottom 5 in ERA for eligible pitchers. And I was like, what? I thought he's been okay. But he's had enough blow up outings. And really, like, there's this stretch before the the Blue Jays game, basically starting with a Dodgers start. So a while ago, whereas ERA was above 6, like, he has just been bad to like okay for the past couple of months. It didn't feel like that. And I think because they were so desperate for just like competent 3-run, 5-inning outings that it felt like that's a huge win when it's actually not that good of an ERA. But like it was like there have been some blow ups, absolutely. But I think you're going to get that with Colin Ray. It happened last year where it's a certain point people were like, they have to get him out of the rotation. Then he went on a run where he gave you like 5-6 innings every start and get like no more than 2-3 runs. And I think that's what you can kind of expect from him. It's not going to be perfect. He's a depth starter, and expecting 25 plus brilliant starts from him is just unfair. Curious to see how they fill out the bullpen. 2 quick notes on bullpen arms. They've added a ton of guys. I've been asking around, anyone look good? Anyone look interesting? And 2 guys are in, I think they're both in Arizona. Bummer has ticked up at least 1 mile per hour, maybe 2. I need to check my text to double check that. And then Eduardiel Nunez, who was in the Cubs system years ago and made it to the majors with Pittsburgh. I'd have to look that up. He's been with a couple different orgs. Yeah, he's been with a couple different orgs since. He was at like 96 early in the season, so down for him when he's at his best. He's back up to 99. Whatever was going on, they've helped him get back to there. I'm not saying like, hey, look for these guys to help the bullpen immediately and be really good. I just think like you need to start looking at arms that are like they've cycled through so many guys, not at the big league level, but like in the minors, like adding guys to the 40-man, cycling through. Someone needs to pop. They need someone to pop. Maybe it's one of those guys, veteran like Bummer. We'll see if someone can help, because you're not going to make it through the season with just these guys. You know that. Like Counsell tells us that every spring training, right? Yeah. It's not going to be this group of 8 the entire season. If it is, like that's kind of weird. Like it evolves. So you hope it evolves in a good way for the Cubs. That's like in that they find someone, and some of them are going to be surprises. Everyone's going to say, well, no, we want the obvious superstar. It doesn't work that way with the bullpens. So we'll see if anyone steps up, if there's maybe not quite a Brad Keller, but some better times ahead and some surprises that can kind of turn things for this group. All right, that's it from us. Thanks so much for listening. Make sure to rate, review, subscribe to Northside Territory, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and subscribe to The Athletic, where Patrick and I are on top of all things Cubs. Thanks for listening, everyone. Take care.